Welcome to The Explainer. So we're diving into a really bold idea coming out of Ghana today. What if a country just never slept? I'm serious. We're talking about a plan to completely rewire the entire national economy to run 24/7, 365 days a year.
So, let's get right into it. The question at the absolute heart of this plan is just massive. How in the world do you create 1.7 million new jobs and fundamentally transform an entire economy? Well, Ghana's answer is to keep the lights on, all the time, operating on a 24-hour cycle.
Okay, but before we get into the nuts and bolts of the solution, we really need to understand the problems it's trying to fix. So what are the core challenges Ghana is actually facing right now? Well, the country is grappling with some pretty major hurdles. For starters, you've got high youth unemployment, which is a huge issue. That's made even worse because Ghana relies so heavily on expensive foreign products. Then you add in some serious infrastructure gaps and a workforce that, needs a bit of upskilling for the digital age, and yeah, you've got a really tough economic situation.
And get this, those infrastructure gaps have a staggering impact. We're talking about inflating the cost of locally produced goods by 60%. 60. To put that in perspective for you, the global average is just 15%. That makes it incredibly difficult, almost impossible, for local businesses to even compete.
So, in response to all of this, the government has come up with something pretty radical, the 24-Hour Economy Authority Bill.
Now, the core idea behind this bill is to build the machinery for a fundamental economic shift. What we're really talking about here is moving the entire country towards a 3-shift, 24/7 production cycle. Basically, the economy never stops.
And what's the number one driver behind this massive undertaking? Well, it all boils down to one thing: creating a ton of jobs.
And the target number here is just huge. The administration estimates this policy could create as many as 1.7 million new jobs by the year 2029. That's a game changer.
Okay, 1.7 million jobs. That's a huge target. So how is this new authority actually structured to make that happen? Let's break down the mechanics of how it's supposed to work.
The whole strategy really rests on 3 big, interconnected pillars. First up, you've got to transform production. Basically, make more stuff locally. Second, you have to fix the supply chain and infrastructure to get those goods to market cheaply and efficiently. And third, you need to develop a skilled workforce that can actually operate around the clock.
Now, this is where the structure gets really interesting, because this isn't your typical government agency. It's actually designed to be led by private citizens and industry groups, not politicians. And its funding? That's also going to come largely from private sources. Plus, it will have the power to propose tax incentives to get companies on board with this whole 24-hour model.
As you can probably guess, a plan this ambitious has sparked a pretty sharp political debate. Even though it's already passed in Parliament, there's major disagreement on whether this new authority is even necessary in the first place.
So the people who support it argue that its authority status is absolutely essential. They say this is what gives it the teeth, the power to cut through red tape and coordinate across all the different government ministries to actually get things done.
But the opposition sees it very, very differently. Critics are arguing that this law just creates another layer of bureaucracy. They're basically saying it doesn't actually deliver a 24-hour economy, it just sets up another fancy office with the CEO. And this really gets to the heart of the debate. On one hand, you have the government, who sees this authority as the essential engine for a national transformation. But on the other hand, you have the opposition, who sees it as a redundant body that's just duplicating the work of agencies that already exist without guaranteeing any real results.
So, with the bill now just waiting for that final presidential signature to become law, the stakes for Ghana's economic future really could not be higher.
You see, the ultimate vision here goes way beyond just creating jobs. The big picture goal is to slash the country's reliance on imports and transform Ghana into a major production and manufacturing hub for the entire West African region.
So where does that leave us? Well, with a huge question. If this plan actually works, it could become a blueprint for economic development across the entire continent. But if it falters, it risks being remembered as a bold but very costly experiment. The question really is, which one will it be?